Taemin stood in front of the mirror in his cabin, adjusting the collar of his diplomatic uniform. The dark blue fabric felt stiff against his skin, nothing like the comfortable combat gear he used to wear. He ran his fingers over his chest, feeling the raised line of scar tissue beneath the material. 5 years had passed since that day, but the memory still felt fresh. The ship hummed quietly around him. They were 3 hours away from Velara Prime, 3 hours away from making first contact with an alien species that could change everything for humanity. Taemin had been chosen for this mission because of his record. He had survived impossible situations. He had kept his head when others panicked. He had medical training, diplomatic training, and combat experience. On paper, he was perfect. But standing there, looking at his reflection, he just felt tired. A knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. "Come in," he said. Hana entered, carrying a datapad. She was the mission xenobiologist, young and brilliant. Her eyes were bright with excitement. "Taemin, you need to see this. We just received new information about the Velaran social structure. Their queen isn't just a political leader. She's something like a spiritual guide, too. They believe she can see things. Future things." Taemin took the pad and scrolled through the information. The Velarans were telepathic, that much they knew. But this prophecy business was new. "So she's a fortune teller?" he asked. "More than that. According to their history, every major decision their civilization made was guided by their queen's visions. They've never been wrong. There's a first time for everything," Taemin said, handing back the pad. Hana frowned. "You don't believe in it?" "I believe in what I can see and touch. Everything else is just guessing." The intercom crackled to life. Daehyun's voice filled the room. "All diplomatic staff report to the briefing room. We'll be entering Velaran space in 30 minutes. Taemin followed Hana through the narrow corridors of the ship. The Harmony's Edge wasn't a military vessel, but it wasn't purely civilian either. It had enough weapons to defend itself and enough diplomats to start a peace. Taemin hoped they would only need the latter. The briefing room was already full when they arrived. Daehyun stood at the front, his captain's uniform immaculate. He had been Taemin's commanding officer during the frontier conflicts. They had bled together, survived together. If anyone understood what Taemin had been through, it was Daehyun. "Listen up," Daehyun said. "We're about to make history. The Velarans have agreed to meet us at their capital city. Queen Ashira herself will be present. This is unprecedented. They've never allowed another species this close to their leadership." "Why now?" someone asked. "We don't know. But whatever the reason, we need to make this work. Humanity needs allies out here. The Velarans have technology we can barely understand. If we can establish trade, cooperation, maybe even friendship, it changes everything." Taemin listened as Daehyun went over the protocols. How to greet them, what topics to avoid, the proper way to address the queen. It all seemed overly complicated, but he understood why. One wrong word could end everything before it started. The ship shuddered slightly as they dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Through the viewport, Velara Prime appeared. It was beautiful. Blues and greens swirled across its surface, and 3 silver moons hung in orbit. Cities glittered like jewels connected by streams of light. "Their transportation network," Hana whispered next to him. "It's pure energy. They don't use vehicles like we do." An hour later, they were landing. The shuttle touched down on a platform that seemed to be made of crystal. Taemin could see through it to the city below. Towers stretched toward the sky, organic and flowing, nothing like Earth's sharp angles and straight lines. The Velaran delegation waited for them. They were humanoid, but clearly not human. Their skin had a silver sheen and their eyes were large and luminous. They wore robes that seemed to shift colors as they moved. At the center stood someone who could only be Queen Ashira. She was taller than the others, her presence commanding without being aggressive. Her hair flowed like liquid silver down her back, and her eyes held an ancient wisdom. But what struck Taemin most was the way she looked at them. Not with curiosity or caution, but with something that looked almost like recognition. Daehyun stepped forward first, making the formal greeting they had practiced. The queen responded through a translation device, her voice melodic and strange. "Welcome to Velara Prime. We have waited long for this meeting." The formal pleasantries began. Gifts were exchanged. Words about peace and cooperation were spoken. Taemin stood slightly behind Daehyun, playing his role as second ambassador. He watched the crowd, the guards, the architecture. Old habits from his military days. That was when he noticed the queen staring at him, not a glance. Not a casual look. She was staring directly at him, her luminous eyes fixed on his face with an intensity that made his skin prickle. He tried to look away to focus on the ceremony, but he could feel her gaze like a physical weight. The other Velaran seemed to notice too. Whispers rippled through their delegation. One of them, an older male with elaborate robes, stepped closer to the queen and spoke quickly in their language. The queen raised a hand, silencing him without looking away from Taimin. Hana leaned close and whispered, "Is it just me? Or is the queen acting strange?" "It's not just you," Taimin replied quietly. The ceremony continued, but the atmosphere had changed. Something was happening that wasn't in any briefing. The queen answered questions from Daehyun, but her attention kept drifting back to Taimin. It was making everyone uncomfortable. Finally, the formal portion ended. They were invited into the grand hall for a reception. Taimin hoped the queen's strange behavior would end once they were in a less formal setting. He was wrong. As they entered the hall, the queen moved through her own people with purpose, heading directly toward the human delegation. Toward him. Taimin's training kicked in. He assessed exits, distances, potential threats, but this wasn't a combat situation. He couldn't just react. The queen stopped in front of him. Up close, she was even more striking. Her eyes held depths he couldn't fathom. "You are Taimin," she said. "Not a question, a statement." "Yes, Your Majesty." "You carry something," she said softly. "A mark, a wound that never fully healed." Taimin's blood ran cold. How could she know about his scar? It was covered by his uniform. Unless her telepathy was stronger than they thought. Before anyone could stop her, before protocols could intervene, Queen Ashira reached out. Her hand pressed against his chest, directly over where his scar lay hidden beneath layers of fabric. Her skin was warm, warmer than he expected. She leaned close, so close he could see the strange patterns in her silver irises. When she spoke, it was in perfect Korean, words that shouldn't be possible from her lips. "That's where my heart belongs." Taimin froze. His mind went blank. His body locked up. Every instinct screamed at him to move, to react, to do something. But he couldn't. He just stood there, feeling the weight of her hand over his scar, hearing those impossible words echo in his head. Around them, chaos erupted. The grand hall fell into confused silence. Every eye in the room fixed on Queen Ashira's hand, pressed against Taimin's chest on the way she stood so close to the human ambassador. Security personnel from both sides tensed, unsure whether this was a threat or something else entirely. Taimin's heart hammered beneath the queen's palm. He could feel it, knew she could feel it too. Her words still rang in his ears. "That's where my heart belongs." Spoken in Korean, his native language, a language this alien queen should not know. "Your Majesty," Daehyun's voice cut through the silence, careful and controlled. "Perhaps we should—" "I have seen him," Queen Ashira said, still not moving her hand. She spoke in the common language now, the translation devices converting her words. "In my visions for 3 cycles of our moon. This human. He stands at the center of what is to come." The Velaran council members erupted in agitated whispers. The elderly male who had tried to speak to the queen earlier stepped forward again. "My queen, the prophecies are sacred. They should not be shared with outsiders so freely." Finally, Ashira lowered her hand. Taimin could breathe again, though his chest still felt warm where she had touched him. The queen turned to her advisor, and for the first time since the humans arrived, she looked away from Taimin. "These are not outsiders, Kelmar. They are exactly who the visions promised. Or do you doubt what I have seen?" Kelmar bowed his head. "Never, my queen. But the manner, the protocol. Protocol exists to serve truth, not to obstruct it." Ashira's voice carried authority that ended all discussion. She looked at Daehyun. "Forgive me, Captain. I have disrupted your ceremony. But what I have seen cannot be ignored. Your second ambassador and I must speak privately." "That's not possible," said Minho. He was the head of security for the human delegation, a wall of muscle and caution. "We can't allow unsupervised contact this early in first contact procedures." Ashira tilted her head, studying Minho with interest. "You fear for his safety? I understand. But if I meant harm, do you believe your weapons could stop me before I acted? We are in my home, surrounded by my people, and I possess abilities your species does not. If I wished harm, it would already be done." "She's got a point," Taimin said quietly. Everyone looked at him. "If this is a trap, we're already in it." And if it's not, we need to know what she's talking about. Hana pushed through the crowd. At least let me monitor the meeting remotely. I can set up bioscanners, keep track of Taemin's vital signs. If anything goes wrong, we'll know immediately. Dae-hyun considered this. His jaw worked as he thought through the options. Finally, he nodded. Agreed. But Minho and I will be close by. Any sign of trouble, we're coming in. Queen Ashira accepted this with a graceful nod. That is reasonable. Come, Taemin of Earth. We have much to discuss. She led him through the crowd, which parted like water before her. Taemin followed, hyper-aware of every step, every breath. Hana attached a small device to his collar, no bigger than a button. She squeezed his arm once, a gesture of support, then stepped back. They walked through corridors of flowing crystal and light. The Velaran architecture seemed alive, shifting and responding to presence. Taemin tried to memorize the route, but after the third turn, he gave up. If things went wrong, finding his way out would be impossible. The queen brought him to a chamber that overlooked the city. One entire wall was transparent, offering a view that took his breath away. The sun was setting, painting the sky in colors Earth had no names for. Please sit, Ashira said, gesturing to a curved bench that seemed to grow from the floor. Taemin sat, keeping his posture ready. Your Majesty, you spoke Korean. How? The visions show me many things. Language is among them. I have dreamed your tongue for 3 moon cycles. I know its sounds, its meanings. In my sleep I have heard you speak it. That's impossible. Your science would say so. But my people have learned that the universe is larger than science alone can measure. She sat across from him, her movements fluid. You do not believe in visions. I can sense that. You are a man of concrete things, of actions and results. Experience taught me that, Taemin said. I've seen too many people put faith in prophecies and predictions, only to be disappointed or worse. Then let me show you what cannot be explained away. Before he could ask what she meant, Ashira reached out again. This time she took his hand. Her skin was warm and smooth, and the moment they touched, the world changed. Taemin saw images flash through his mind. Not memories, but something else. He saw himself standing on a battlefield, fire raining from the sky. He saw Ashira beside him, their hands joined just like now. He saw Earth and Velara Prime connected by bridges of light. He saw war and peace, death and life all tangled together in a future that hadn't happened yet. And he saw his scar. In the vision it glowed with strange light pulsing like a beacon. The connection broke. Taemin gasped, pulling his hand back. His heart raced. His skin felt electric. What was that? He demanded. What I have seen. What may come to pass? Ashira's luminous eyes held sadness now. A great war approaches, Taemin. Not between your people and mine, but involving both. There are forces in this galaxy that fear what we could become together. They will try to destroy us before we can unite. That sounds like a convenient story to make humans trust you, Taemin said, though his voice shook. Does it? Then explain how I knew your language. Explain how I knew about your scar before seeing it. Explain the images you just witnessed. Taemin had no explanation. The visions had felt real. More real than any dream or hallucination. He had felt the heat of that future fire, the weight of impending war. Why me? He asked. I'm just a second ambassador. Dae-hyun is the captain, the mission leader. If your visions are real, why not him? Because you carry something special. Your wound, that mark on your chest. It was made by weapons not of your world, yes? Taemin nodded slowly. Plasma rifle. Enemy tech. My own side didn't even have weapons like that. And you survived what should have killed you. You lived when all probability said you would die. That moment, that impossible survival, it changed something in you, created something in you. The weapon's energy left traces in your body, markers that resonate with how my people's minds work. You're saying I'm compatible with telepathy because I got shot? I am saying the universe has a way of preparing vessels for what they must carry. You were marked for a reason, Taemin. Your survival was not luck, it was necessity. Taemin stood up, needing to move, to think. This was too much. Alien queens and prophecies and destiny. He had signed up to be a diplomat, not a chosen one. I need proof, he said. Real proof, not visions or feelings. Something I can verify. Ashira rose as well. I can offer you proof, but it will require trust. I can share more than glimpses with you. I can open my mind fully, let you see everything I have witnessed. But such a connection is not without risk. You would feel what I feel, know what I know. It is intimate in ways your culture might find uncomfortable, and if I refuse, then we proceed with normal diplomacy, trade agreements, cultural exchanges, slow building of trust over years. But the war I have seen will come and we will not be ready. Millions will die on both sides. She was giving him a choice, but it didn't feel like much of one. Taemin thought about Daehyun, about Hana and Minho and everyone on the ship. He thought about Earth, about humanity reaching out into the stars. If there was even a chance she was telling the truth, could he risk ignoring it? Before I decide, he said, I need to talk to my people. Captain Daehyun needs to be briefed. Of course, I would not ask you to decide alone. Ashira moved toward the door, then paused. Taemin, I know this frightens you. It frightens me as well. I did not ask for these visions. I did not choose to be the one who sees what may come. But we are both here now, and we must decide whether to be brave together or cautious apart. As they walked back through the crystal corridors, Taemin's mind raced. Everything had changed in the space of an hour. First contact was supposed to be simple, careful, slow. Instead, it had become something else entirely. And deep in his chest, beneath the scar tissue and bone, he felt something stirring. Something he couldn't name or explain. As if the mark on his body recognized the Queen's words, recognized the truth in her impossible claims. He touched his chest, feeling the raised line beneath his uniform. For 5 years, it had been just a reminder of a bad day. Now apparently it was something more. The question was whether he had the courage to find out what. Taemin stood in his quarters aboard the Harmony's edge, staring at the ceiling. Sleep wouldn't come. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw fragments of Ashira's vision. Fire and light, war and peace, all jumbled together in ways that made his head hurt. The door chimed. He sat up, checking the time. 3 a.m. by ship time. Come in. Daehyun entered, looking as tired as Taemin felt. He carried 2 cups of coffee and offered one. Couldn't sleep either? Daehyun asked. Not even close. They sat in silence for a moment, sipping the bitter coffee. Finally, Daehyun spoke. I've been reading reports about Velaran telepathy. Hana sent me everything she could find. It's not just reading thoughts. They can share experiences, emotions, entire memories. When that queen touched you, she could have shown you anything. Made you feel anything. I know. So how do we trust it? How do we know she's not just manipulating you? Taemin had been asking himself the same question. We don't, but what if she's telling the truth? What if there really is a war coming? Then we need allies and weapons, not prophecies. Daehyun set down his cup. Look, I trust your instincts. You kept us alive during the frontier conflicts when everything went wrong. But this is different. This is first contact with an alien species we barely understand. One wrong move and we could start the war she's warning us about. I know the risks, do you? Daehyun leaned forward. Because I remember the day you got that scar. I remember carrying you to the medical transport, your chest torn open, blood everywhere. The doctor said you shouldn't have survived the trip, let alone the surgery. And here you are 5 years later. And an alien queen says that wound makes you special. Taemin touched his chest reflexively. The scar always felt different at night, more sensitive somehow. Tell me about that day, Daehyun said quietly. We've never really talked about it. Taemin closed his eyes, letting the memory come. He had spent 5 years trying to bury it, but it never really went away. We were holding the line at Outpost 7. He began. Remember? The enemy had better weapons, better armor, better everything. We were just trying to buy time for the civilians to evacuate. I remember. We were losing. Yeah. I was treating wounded in the bunker when the call came. The front line was collapsing. You needed every able body. Taemin's voice grew distant. I grabbed a rifle and ran. Didn't think about it. Just moved. The memory played out in his mind with perfect clarity. The sound of plasma fire, the screams of wounded soldiers, the smell of burning metal and flesh. He had reached the front line just as enemy forces broke through. I saw them coming, Taemin continued. Saw them aiming at our people, at you. The others were pinned down, couldn't move without getting cut down. Someone had to draw fire. So you stood up, Daehyun said softly. Right in the open. Started shooting and didn't stop. I remember thinking it was stupid, suicidal, but everyone else had families, people waiting for them. I was alone. It seemed like a fair trade. Taemin had killed 3 enemy soldiers before the 4th one hit him. The plasma bolt struck dead center in his chest, burning through his armor like it was paper. He remembered the pain, white-hot and absolute. He remembered falling. He remembered being certain he was dead, But you didn't die, Daehyun said. No, I didn't die. Taemin opened his eyes. The medical team said the plasma bolt should have vaporized my heart. Should have killed me instantly. Instead, it somehow missed everything vital. Burned a path right through me, but didn't hit anything that would cause immediate death. They called it a miracle. Or maybe it was preparation, Daehyun suggested. Like the Queen said, you believe her? I don't know what I believe, but I know you, Taemin. You don't scare easy. And right now you're terrified. That tells me something real happened in that room with her. Taemin nodded. His friend knew him too well. She wants to do a deeper connection, Taemin said. Show me everything she's seen. But she warned it would be intense, intimate, and you're considering it. Earth Command sent us out here to make contact, to build bridges. If she's right about this war, if there's any truth to her visions, we need to know. We need to prepare. Daehyun stood, walking to the viewport. Outside, Valara Prime glowed in the darkness, beautiful and alien. I'll support whatever you decide. But remember, you're not alone anymore. You've got a whole crew here. People who care about what happens to you. Don't make yourself a sacrifice again. After Daehyun left, Taemin lay back down. He thought about the Queen's words, about destiny and preparation and wars to come. He thought about his scar, about impossible survival and strange energy signatures. He thought about standing alone against enemy fire, choosing death so others could live. Maybe he had always been preparing for this. Maybe every choice, every battle, every wound had been leading to this moment. The next morning, Taemin sent a message to the Valaran Palace. He agreed to the deeper connection. The meeting was arranged for that evening. Ashira requested it take place in a sacred chamber, a place where her people went to share their deepest visions. Hana insisted on coming along with monitoring equipment. Minho wanted to position security teams nearby. Daehyun simply wished him luck. The sacred chamber was underground, carved from natural crystal. It glowed with soft light that seemed to come from within the stone itself. In the center was a raised platform with cushions arranged in a circle. Ashira was already there, wearing simpler robes than before. She looked younger somehow, more vulnerable. Thank you for trusting me, she said as Taemin entered. I'm not sure I do trust you, he replied honestly, but I need to know the truth. That is trust enough. She gestured to the cushions. Please sit facing me. Hana, you may place your equipment, but you must remain outside the circle. What we share cannot be monitored by machines. Hana set up her scanners and reluctantly moved back. If anything seems wrong, I'm coming in. Understood. Taemin sat across from Ashira. Up close in the soft light, he could see the silver patterns in her skin more clearly. They moved slightly, like water reflecting moonlight. What do I need to do? He asked. Give me your hands. Open your mind as best you can. I will do the rest. He placed his hands in hers. Her skin was warm, her grip gentle but firm. She closed her eyes and began to speak in her own language, words that flowed like music. The world dissolved. Taemin found himself standing on a battlefield he didn't recognize. Ships burned in the sky above. The ground was scorched and broken. But this wasn't Earth or Valara Prime. It was somewhere else, somewhere strange. Ashira stood beside him. This is what I have seen. The future that approaches if we fail. They watched as armies clashed. Taemin saw humans and Velarans fighting side by side against something else, something dark and terrible. Beings made of shadow and malice, creatures that fed on fear and death. Who are they? Taemin asked. The Vorith. Ancient ones who believe only the strong deserve to exist. They have watched our worlds for generations, waiting for the right moment to strike. When they learned that humans and Velarans might ally, they decided the time had come. The vision shifted. Now they stood in a command center. Taemin saw himself older and scarred, working beside Ashira. Their hands moved in perfect synchronization, directing forces across multiple fronts. When he spoke, she understood. When she thought, he acted. They were one mind in two bodies. Is that really possible? Taemin breathed. It is what we can become. The bond I spoke of. Your scar, the energy it carries, it creates a bridge. A connection between telepathic and non-telepathic minds. We believe this is why you survived. Why the weapon struck you but didn't kill you. It marked you as a bridge between worlds. The vision changed again. Now Taemin saw Earth burning. Cities in flames, ships falling from orbit. He saw Valara Prime under siege, its beautiful crystal towers shattered. He felt the deaths of billions, the end of everything both species had built. This happens if we fail, Ashira said. If we cannot unite in time, the Vorath are coming. They will arrive in 3 of your years, maybe less. Without the bond, without true understanding between our people, we will fall separately. And with the bond? Taman asked. The vision shifted one final time. He saw himself and Ashira standing together on a platform between worlds. Light flowed from their joined hands, connecting humans and Velerans in a web of understanding. When the Vorath came, they found not 2 separate species but one unified force. The battle was still terrible, still costly, but they won. They survived. The connection ended. Taman gasped, his body remembering to breathe. He was back in the sacred chamber, his hands still in Ashira's. Tears ran down his face, though he didn't remember starting to cry. I felt them, he whispered. All those people. Their fear, their hope, their deaths. Yes, this is what I carry every night. Every time I sleep, I see these possibilities. Feel these futures. Taman looked at her and saw the weight she bore. She was not a manipulator or a liar. She was someone carrying an impossible burden, trying desperately to save her people and his. The bond, he said. Tell me exactly what it means. Ashira explained the bond in detail. It would link their minds permanently, allowing them to share thoughts, emotions, and experiences. Taman would gain limited telepathic abilities. She would understand human thinking in ways no Veleran ever had. Together they would become proof that both species could unite, but there were costs. If one of them died, the other would feel everything. The pain, the fear, the final moment. They would carry that wound forever. And the bond could never be broken, never be undone. It sounds like a chain, Taman said. Or a bridge, Ashira replied. It depends on how you see it. Back on the Harmony's edge, Taman called a meeting with the senior staff. Daehyun, Hana, Minho, and the other department heads gathered in the conference room. Taman told them everything, holding nothing back. She's asking you to link your life to hers, Minho said flatly. That's not diplomacy. That's something else. It's a bond that could save both our species, Taman countered. If she's right about the Vorath, we need every advantage. If she's right, Minho emphasized. We only have her word for any of this. No physical evidence of these Vorath. No independent confirmation of her visions. Hana cleared her throat. Actually, I found something. After analyzing the bioreadings from Taman's session with the Queen, I detected energy signatures in his scar tissue. They match theoretical models for exotic matter, the kind that shouldn't exist naturally. It's like quantum entanglement, but biological. What does that mean in regular language? Daehyun asked. It means Taman's scar really does carry something unusual, something that could potentially interface with telepathic neural patterns. The Queen's claims about the plasma weapon leaving markers, they're not just mysticism. There's science behind it. The room fell silent as everyone processed this. Minho spoke first. Even if the scar is real, it doesn't prove the rest. Doesn't prove there's a war coming or that this bond is the solution. No, Taman agreed, but it's more than we had before. Daehyun leaned back in his chair. I've been in contact with Earth Command. They're interested but cautious. They want more time, more data, but they've also detected unusual activity near the outer colonies, ships that don't match any known species. Could be pirates, could be scouts, could be these Vorath. So what do? Someone asked. We gather intelligence, Minho said. Find out if everyone on Valara Prime supports their Queen's vision. Learn about the political situation. Right now, we're too focused on Ashira. We need to understand her people better. It was solid advice. Over the next 3 days, the human delegation worked to build connections with various Veleran factions. They met with scientists, merchants, military leaders, and common citizens. Most were welcoming, curious about humans in positive ways. But not everyone. Hana was the first to notice the resistance. During a visit to a Veleran research facility, several scientists refused to meet with her. When she asked why, her guide became uncomfortable. There are some among us who question the Queen's path, the guide admitted quietly. They believe humans are too different, too unpredictable. They fear what might happen if our species become too close. Who leads this opposition? I cannot say. It would be dangerous for both of us. Similar reports came from other delegation members. Minho discovered that certain military units were not under the Queen's direct control. Daehyun learned about a general named Thessa, who commanded significant forces and rarely came to the capital. On the 4th day, Taman received an unexpected visitor. A Veleran named Kelmar, the same advisor who had objected during the first meeting with Ashira. He came to Taman's quarters late at night, alone and nervous. I must speak with you, Kelmar said, away from the Queen's presence. They walked in a private garden attached to the human living quarters. Kelmar kept looking around as if afraid of being watched. You must understand, Kelmar began. Queen Ashira is beloved by our people. Her visions have guided us well for many years. But this obsession with you and your species, it divides us. Obsession is a strong word, Tamin said, is it? She speaks of little else. She has redirected resources to prepare for a war that may never come. She wants to bind herself to you, a human she barely knows, based on dreams. You don't believe in her visions? Kelmar was quiet for a moment. I believe she sees something. But visions are not facts. They are possibilities, interpretations. And even if this war comes, there are other ways to prepare. Ways that don't require our queen to sacrifice herself. What do you mean, sacrifice? The bond she proposes, it will change her fundamentally. She will carry human thoughts in her mind forever. Some fear she will stop being truly Velaran. And if you die, if humans prove as violent and short-lived as some believe, she will be destroyed. Tamin felt a chill. There are people who want me dead. Not yet. But General Thessa and her followers grow bolder. They believe humanity is a threat, not an ally. They point to your wars, your history of violence, your inability to live in peace even among yourselves. And what do you believe? Kelmar met his eyes. I believe you are a good man who survived impossible odds. I believe my queen sees something true in you. But I also believe you should know what you face. If you accept this bond, you will have enemies on both sides. After Kelmar left, Tamin reported the conversation to Daehyun. They decided to investigate General Thessa more thoroughly. What they found was troubling. Thessa commanded the outer defense fleets, forces stationed far from Valara Prime. She had significant support among military hardliners who believed the Queen had become too peaceful, too willing to trust outsiders. There were rumors that Thessa had refused direct orders, that she was building her power base for a challenge to Ashira's authority. Meanwhile, Minho uncovered something equally disturbing from Earth's side. Admiral Jiwoo, a high-ranking officer in Earth's defense fleet, had been sending encrypted messages questioning the mission's goals. She argued that humanity should be securing military advantages, not pursuing mystical bonds with aliens. Some of her messages suggested she saw the Valarans as potential enemies rather than allies. We're sitting on a powder keg, Minho reported. If Thessa makes a move, Jiwoo might use it as justification to militarize our response. We could end up starting the war we're trying to prevent. Tamin felt the walls closing in. He needed to talk to Ashira to warn her. But when he tried to arrange a meeting, he was told the Queen was in meditation, preparing for an important ceremony. That evening, a cultural exchange was scheduled. Velarans would demonstrate their art and music. Humans would share theirs. It was meant to be a celebration of growing friendship. Tamin had a bad feeling about it. The event took place in an open courtyard under Velara's 3 moons. Hundreds attended, Velarans and humans mingling freely. For a few hours, it seemed like the future both species hoped for. Music played, food was shared, and barriers dissolved. Tamin stood with Hana, watching a Velaran artist create sculptures from light itself. Ashira was nearby, speaking with Daehyun about cultural traditions. Everything seemed peaceful. Then the first explosion hit. The blast came from the western wall, shattering crystal and sending debris flying. People screamed and scattered. Tamin's combat instincts kicked in immediately. He grabbed Hana and pulled her behind a pillar as 2 more explosions followed. "Stay down," he shouted. Through the chaos, he saw armed figures moving through the crowd. They wore Velaran armor but moved wrong. Too aggressive, too focused. Not security responding to an attack. These were the attackers. Minho appeared, weapon drawn, shepherding humans toward the exits. "Get to the ships." "This is an assassination attempt." Tamin's heart froze. Ashira. He scanned the crowd frantically and found her standing in the open, too exposed. One of the armed figures was moving toward her, raising a weapon. Without thinking, Tamin ran. His body moved on instinct, the same instinct that had made him stand up on that battlefield 5 years ago. He reached Ashira just as the weapon fired, throwing himself between her and the blast. But this time something different happened. The weapon's energy hit Tamin's chest, right over his scar. Instead of burning through him, the energy seemed to diffuse, spreading across his skin like water. His scar blazed with light bright enough to blind. He felt Ashira's mind touch his, felt her power flowing through their connection. Together, without planning or practice, they redirected the blast. It flew back toward the attacker, striking him down. They stood there, Taemin's hand over his glowing scar, Ashira's hand over his. Around them the fighting continued, but in that moment they existed in perfect synchronization. "I felt you," Ashira whispered. "Your instinct to protect, your willingness to sacrifice." "I felt you too," Taemin said. "Your power, your absolute certainty." Minho's security team, working with loyal Valaran guards, managed to subdue the remaining attackers. The courtyard fell silent except for the moans of the wounded and the crackle of flames. Taemin and Ashira slowly separated, though their hands remained joined. His scar still glowed faintly, and he could feel something new inside him, something that hadn't been there before. A connection, thin but real, linking him to the Valaran queen. "The bond," he said. "It's already starting." Yes, the danger, the need to protect each other, it triggered the beginning. But it's not complete yet. Not permanent. Kelmar ran up, his face pale. "My queen, thank the light, you're safe." The attack changed everything. The courtyard was cleared of injured and dead. Crystal shards swept away, but the damage to trust remained. General Thessa had made her move, and though it failed, everyone knew it was only the beginning. Ashira called an emergency council meeting. Taemin attended, standing beside her as the Valaran leadership argued in their musical language. Even without understanding the words, he could feel the tension. Finally, Ashira spoke in the common language so Taemin would understand. "General Thessa has betrayed us. She believed the prophecies were wrong, that humans would destroy us, so she tried to destroy them first. And in doing so proved humans are not the threat," said one council member. "We are. Some of us are," Kelmar corrected. "Not all, but enough that we cannot continue as before. The queen must be protected. The humans must be protected, and the bond must be completed." "The bond is madness," another counselor argued. "Binding our queen to an alien, making them dependent on each other. What if it fails? What if it makes her weak? What if it makes us strong?" Ashira replied, "Strong enough to face what's coming. You all felt it when Taemin protected me. You saw the light from his scar, saw how we moved together. That was instinct, unconscious connection. Imagine what we could do with full bonding." The council debated for hours. Meanwhile, the human delegation held their own emergency meeting. Earth Command had sent new orders. Extract all personnel and establish defensive positions. Admiral Jiwoo was being given authority to position warships near Valaran space. "They think this is the start of war," Daehyun said, reading the messages. "They think Thessa speaks for all Valarans." "We need to show them she doesn't," Hana said. "We need proof that the alliance can work." Minho shook his head. "The proof they want is military advantage. Ships, weapons, technology transfers, not some mystical bond." "Then they're fools," Taemin said quietly. Everyone looked at him. "I've been in wars. I know what military advantage looks like. It's not enough. You need more than weapons to win. You need people willing to fight together, willing to trust each other completely. That's what the bond offers." "You're actually going to do it," Daehyun said. "It wasn't a question. I am, with or without Earth Command's approval. They could court-martial you." "They could. But if Ashira's visions are right, if the Vorath are real, then court-martial won't matter. Nothing will matter except survival." Daehyun stood and placed a hand on Taemin's shoulder. "Then I'm with you. Whatever happens, the decision was made. Ashira and Taemin would complete the bond. But first, they had to escape the capital. Kelmar brought the warning just after midnight. General Thessa's forces are moving. She's bringing her fleet into orbit. She claims she's protecting Valara Prime from human aggression, but really she's coming to seize control. "How long do we have?" Ashira asked. "Hours, maybe less. You must leave the capital, find somewhere safe to complete the bond." "Where?" Taemin asked. "Anywhere we go will be found." "There is a place," Ashira said slowly. "The Crystal Sanctum. It's deep in the northern forest, built by my ancestors for the most sacred rituals. It's shielded from telepathic detection and difficult to reach physically." "Then that's where we go," Daehyun decided. "I'll have the Harmony's Edge ready for immediate departure." "No," Ashira said. "Your ship is too large, too obvious. Thessa's forces will track it. We need something smaller, faster." Kelmar nodded. "I can arrange transport. A small shuttle, Valaran design. Fast enough to outrun pursuit." "Who's going?" Minho asked. "Ashira and I need to," Taemin said. "The bond requires both of us." "I'm coming," Hana said firmly. If we're dealing with exotic matter and telepathic connections, you need a scientist there. And security, Minho added. I'm coming too. In the end, 6 of them made the journey. Ashira and Taimin, Hana and Minho, plus 2 of Ashira's most trusted guards. They left before dawn, slipping out of the palace through hidden passages that Ashira had known since childhood. The shuttle was small and fast, as promised. It shot through Velara's atmosphere like a silver dart, leaving the capital behind. Through the viewport, Taimin saw Thessa's fleet approaching, massive warships that dwarfed anything humanity had built. She really means to take over, he said. She believes she's saving our people, Ashira replied. In her mind, I'm the traitor, not her. That's what makes this so dangerous. She's not evil, just convinced she's right. The crystal sanctum appeared after 2 hours of flight. It rose from the forest like a mountain of light, a natural crystal formation that had been shaped and sanctified over thousands of years. Even from a distance, Taimin could feel something radiating from it, a power that made his scar tingle. They landed at the base and made their way inside. The interior was vast and beautiful, walls of living crystal that pulsed with soft light. At the center was a chamber with a pool of liquid that glowed like captured starlight. This is where the first Velaran queens learned to see the future, Ashira explained. The pool amplifies telepathic abilities, makes connections clearer and stronger. It will help us complete the bond safely. What do we need to do? Taimin asked. Remove your shirt. Enter the pool with me. Open your mind completely and trust me. Taimin hesitated. This was it, the point of no return. Once the bond was complete, his life would never be the same. He would carry Ashira's thoughts, her emotions, her very existence inside himself. And she would carry his. Hana touched his arm gently. You don't have to do this. We can find another way. No, Taimin said. We can't. This is what I survived for. What that scar prepared me for. He smiled at her. Besides, someone needs to prove humans and Velarans can work together. Might as well be me. He removed his uniform shirt, exposing his scar to the crystal light. It looked different here, more pronounced, as if the sanctum recognized it. Ashira removed her own robes, revealing silver skin marked with patterns that shifted and flowed. Together, they stepped into the pool. The liquid was warm and tingly, like carbonated water against skin. As they moved to the center, the glow intensified. Ashira took Taimin's hands. This will be intense, she said. You'll feel everything I am, everything I've experienced. It may hurt. It may overwhelm you. If you need to stop, tell me immediately. I won't need to stop, so certain. I stood against plasma fire once. I can stand against this. Ashira smiled, and for the first time, Taimin saw real warmth in it. Yes, I believe you can. Are you ready? No. But do it anyway. The bond began. At first, it was just warmth spreading from where their hands joined. Then it became more. Taimin felt Ashira's mind touching his, felt her consciousness flowing into him like water filling empty spaces. He saw her memories, her childhood in the palace, learning to control her telepathy. The day she became queen and accepted the burden of visions. He felt her loneliness. For all her power, she had been isolated, unable to fully connect with her own people because her mind was too strong, too overwhelming. Every relationship carried the risk of accidentally dominating the other person's thoughts. Until now. Until him. His scar blazed with light. The exotic matter within it acted as a buffer, allowing him to accept her presence without being overwhelmed. And in return, she received his memories. The battles, the blood, the day he got his scar. She felt his loneliness too. The isolation of being a survivor when so many others died. They were mirrors of each other. Different species, different worlds, but the same core of sacrifice and duty and bone-deep loneliness. The bond deepened. Taimin gasped as emotions that weren't his flooded through him. Ashira's love for her people, her fear of failing them, her desperate hope that the visions were wrong about the coming war, and mixed with all of that, something he hadn't expected, her growing feelings for him. Not love, not yet, but the recognition of a kindred spirit. He opened his own heart in return, letting her see his doubts, his fears, his determination to prove that one person could make a difference. She saw how he blamed himself for every soldier who died under his care, how he carried their faces in his memory like stones in his chest. The pool's light became blinding. The crystal walls sang with energy. Somewhere in the back of his mind, Taimin heard Hana shouting, heard Minho yelling something about energy readings going critical. But he couldn't stop. They couldn't stop. They had gone too deep, become too intertwined. The bond was taking hold, permanent and irreversible. He felt his heart beating, felt Ashira's heart beating, felt them synchronizing, finding the same rhythm. Two beings becoming something new, something that had never existed before, a bridge, a bond, a proof that different species could unite at the deepest possible level. The light peaked and then collapsed inward. The pool's glow faded. Taemin and Ashira stood in the center, still holding hands, still connected, but in a new way now. He could feel her presence in his mind, not invasive but comforting, like having a voice that would never judge, never abandon. She looked at him with those luminous eyes, and he knew she felt the same. They were bonded, permanently, completely. "How do you feel?" she asked, and he heard her voice both with his ears and in his mind. Strange, complete, terrified. He smiled. Alive. The ships descended on the crystal sanctum like hunting birds. Thessa had brought a full strike force, enough firepower to level the ancient structure if needed, but she didn't want to destroy it. She wanted to capture it, to take the queen alive and prove that the bond was a mistake. Inside the sanctum, alarms blared. The Velaran guards moved to defensive positions while Minho checked his weapons. The situation was desperate. They were 6 people against an army, but Taemin felt calm. Through his new connection with Ashira, he could sense what she sensed. The enemy positions, their intent, their weaknesses, and she could sense his tactical training, his combat experience, his instinct for survival. "We can't fight them all," Minho said. "We need to contact the Harmony's edge, get reinforcements." "There's no time," one of the Velaran guards replied. "They'll breach the sanctum in minutes." Ashira closed her eyes and Taemin felt her consciousness expand. She was reaching out telepathically, touching the minds of Thessa's soldiers. Not controlling them, just understanding them. "They're afraid," she said softly. "Most of them don't want to be here. They follow Thessa because they trust her, but they're uncertain. Conflicted. Can you turn them?" Hana asked. "Not alone, but with Taemin, with the bond, perhaps we can show them the truth." Taemin understood immediately. Through their connection, they could demonstrate what the bond meant. Not domination or weakness, but genuine unity. If they could broadcast that to Thessa's forces, show them the proof of successful cooperation, it might sway enough soldiers to stop the attack. "How do we broadcast a telepathic signal?" Taemin asked. "The sanctum's crystals. They amplify telepathic energy. If we channel through them, we can reach every mind within range." "That will leave you vulnerable," Minho warned. "You'll be completely exposed." "Then protect us," Taemin said simply. "That's why you're here." Before anyone could argue further, the sanctum's outer walls shook. Thessa's forces were beginning their assault. They had minutes at best. Taemin and Ashira moved to the central chamber where the pool still glowed faintly. They joined hands again, and this time it was easier. The bond welcomed them, pulling their minds together naturally. "Think of what we can achieve," Ashira said. "Think of the future we can build." Taemin focused on his memories. Not the battles and blood, but the moments after. The relief when wounded soldiers survived. The joy when his unit completed a mission without casualties. The hope he felt every time humanity reached for something better than war. Ashira added her own visions. The possibilities of cooperation, of shared knowledge, of 2 species learning from each other. She showed the beauty of difference, the strength found in combining unique perspectives. Together, their thoughts flowed into the crystals. The entire sanctum began to glow, brighter and brighter until light poured from every wall and window. The telepathic broadcast reached out like ripples on water, touching every mind in range. Outside, Thessa's soldiers felt it. They experienced just for a moment what the bond truly meant. They felt Taemin's determination to protect Ashira. They felt Ashira's absolute trust in him. They felt the harmony of 2 very different beings choosing to become one. The assault stopped. Not everyone was swayed. Some soldiers, the most loyal to Thessa, pushed forward, but enough hesitated. Enough lowered their weapons that the attack lost its coordination. In orbit above Velara Prime, something else was happening. Admiral Jiwoo had brought her fleet into the system, ready to defend human interests. When she saw Thessa's coup attempt, she saw an opportunity. A chance to paint all Velarans as hostile, to justify military action. But she hadn't counted on what happened next. The Harmony's edge, under Daehyun's command, positioned itself between Jiwoo's fleet and Velara Prime. It was one ship against dozens, a suicidal gesture, But Dae-hyun wasn't alone. Several Velaran ships, those still loyal to Ashira, joined him. They formed a line, human and Velaran vessels side by side. Admiral Jiwoo, Dae-hyun broadcast on all channels. Stand down. This is not an invasion. It's a coup attempt by a rogue faction. If you attack, you'll be starting the war you claim to prevent. Captain Dae-hyun, you're protecting aliens over your own people. That's treason. No, Admiral. I'm protecting the future. Our future. The bond between Queen Ashira and Ambassador Taimin has been completed. They're proof that our species can work together. Attack them and you'll be proving the coup plotters right. You'll be saying humans and Velarans can never trust each other. Jiwoo hesitated. She had her orders, her convictions. But she was also a practical woman. Starting a war based on a misunderstanding would end her career at best, destroy humanity's reputation at worst. Show me this bond, she demanded. Show me proof it's real. Back at the sanctum, Taimin and Ashira heard this through the communication systems Hana had set up. They looked at each other, the same thought occurring to both simultaneously. We can show her, Ashira said. Through the crystals we can extend the broadcast. She'll feel what we feel. That's incredibly dangerous, Hana warned. You'd be opening your minds to someone hostile, someone who might try to hurt you through the connection. She won't, Taimin said with certainty. She's a soldier. She respects strength. Show her we're strong together and she'll listen. They focused again, this time directing the broadcast upward through atmosphere and space, reaching for the ships in orbit. Jiwoo felt it first, her telepathic resistant human mind suddenly touched by something impossible. She felt the bond, felt the absolute certainty that Taimin and Ashira shared, and she felt something else. The warning, the vision of the Vorath. Through the bond, Ashira could share her prophecies more clearly than ever. Jiwoo experienced the future war, saw the dark ships appearing at humanity's borders, felt the terror of facing an enemy that wanted only destruction. But she also saw the other future. The one where humans and Velaran stood together, where the bond between Taimin and Ashira became a template for cooperation. Where both species survived because they chose unity over fear. The broadcast ended. Jiwoo sat in her command chair, shaken. Her officers stared at her, waiting for orders. Stand down, she said quietly. All ships, defensive positions only. No hostile action. Admiral, her second-in-command questioned. I felt it, Commander. The bond is real, and so is the threat. We're going to need allies for what's coming. At the sanctum, Thessa finally arrived. She had fought through her own wavering soldiers to reach the central chamber where Taimin and Ashira stood. Her weapon was raised, her face twisted with betrayal and rage. You've destroyed us, she said to Ashira. Tied us to these violent, short-lived creatures. When they inevitably betray us, you'll have no one to blame but yourself. Look at me, Thessa, Ashira replied calmly. Really look. Use your telepathy. See what I see. Reluctantly, Thessa opened her telepathic senses. She touched the bond, felt its depth and strength, and for the first time she saw the Vorath clearly. Ashira had been shielding some details of her visions, trying not to cause panic. But now she showed everything. The darkness coming from deep space. The ancient evil that had destroyed dozens of civilizations. The enemies that were already moving, already planning their attack on this sector of the galaxy. Thessa's weapon lowered. This is real? The Vorath are coming? Yes, in 3 years, maybe less. And we cannot face them divided, but why him? Thessa looked at Taimin.
Why a human?
Taimin stepped forward. Because I carry something that bridges our differences. Because I survived when I shouldn't have. Because someone had to be first, had to prove it could work. It might as well be me. Through the bond, Ashira added what Taimin was too humble to say. She showed Thessa his sacrifice on the battlefield, his willingness to die for others. She showed his strength, his integrity, his absolute refusal to give up even when everything seemed lost. This is what humanity offers, Ashira said. Not just weapons or numbers, but spirit. The determination to survive against impossible odds. Combined with our telepathy, our technology, our understanding, we can become something neither of us could be alone. Thessa was silent for a long moment. Then she lowered her weapon completely. I still believe you're making a mistake, she said. But I also believe in you, my queen. If you say this is necessary, I will support it. But watch him carefully. Watch all humans carefully. Trust is earned, not given. Agreed, Taimin said. We'll earn it. Every day the crisis passed. Thessa ordered her forces to stand down. Jiwoo pulled her fleet back to a respectful distance. The coup attempt was over, ended not by violence but by proof. Proof that the bond worked, that unity was possible. But as everyone breathed with relief, Taimin felt something through his connection with Ashira. A cold shiver, a sense of distant eyes watching. He turned to her. "You feel it too?" she asked. "Something's coming. Not in 3 years. Sooner." Through their bond, they shared a terrible realization. The Vorath had been watching. They had seen the bond form, seen the alliance beginning to take shape, and they had decided not to wait. In the deep black of space, far beyond the outer colonies, dark ships began to move. The war was coming early, but this time humanity and the Velerans would face it together. Not as separate species, but as allies bound by something stronger than treaties or agreements. They were bound by choice, by sacrifice, by the determination to prove that cooperation was stronger than conquest. Taimin touched the neutral station hung in space between Earth and Valara Prime, a symbol of the fragile peace both species hoped to maintain. It had taken 6 months to build after the coup attempt ended. 6 months of careful diplomacy, treaty negotiations, and preparation for what was coming. The Vorath were real. Long-range sensors had confirmed it. Dark ships moving through deep space heading toward inhabited systems. They would arrive in less than 2 years now, faster than anyone expected. But in those 6 months, something remarkable had happened. The bond between Taimin and Ashira had become a template, a proof of concept. Volunteers from both species stepped forward, willing to form similar connections. Not everyone could. It required specific conditions, specific compatibility, but enough could that a new program began, the Bridge Initiative. Taimin stood on the observation deck of the station, looking out at the stars. Through his bond with Ashira, he could feel her approaching even before the door opened. It was one of the stranger aspects of their connection. They always knew where the other was, what they were feeling. Privacy existed only when they consciously chose to create it. "Nervous?" Ashira asked, joining him at the window. "Terrified," he admitted. "Today decides everything." Today was the summit. Representatives from 50 species would gather to discuss the Vorath threat. Earth and Valara Prime had sent envoys to every neighboring civilization, warning them, sharing evidence, begging for alliance. Some listened. Many were skeptical. The Vorath were myths, legends, ghost stories to frighten children, until the attacks began. 3 outer colonies had fallen in the past month. 1 human, 1 Veleran, 1 belonging to a species called the Terrene. The Vorath didn't discriminate. They simply destroyed efficiently and completely, leaving nothing behind but debris and silence. Now, finally, people were listening. The summit hall was massive, designed to accommodate different physiologies. Humans, Velerans, Terrene, and dozens of other species filled the space. Tensions ran high. Many blamed Earth and Valara Prime for drawing the Vorath's attention with their alliance. Dai Hyun, now promoted to Admiral for his role in preventing war between humans and Valarans, led the Earth delegation. Kelmar represented the Veleran Council, and at the center, where everyone could see them, stood Taimin and Ashira. They had become symbols. The bonded pair. Proof that cooperation was possible, but proof wasn't enough. Not anymore. A Tarine commander stood and spoke through translation devices. "You ask us to risk our fleets, our people, based on the visions of 1 queen and the word of 1 human. You ask us to trust this bond you formed. But how do we know it's real? How do we know you're not deceiving us?" Murmurs of agreement rippled through the hall. This was the question they'd been expecting, the one that would determine everything. Ashira stepped forward. "We can show you, not with words or promises, but with experience. My people have telepaths among you, neutral observers from multiple species. They can verify what Taimin and I share. They can feel the bond for themselves. And if it's a trick, if you're simply powerful enough to fool them, then test us," Taimin said. He pulled out a small device Hana had designed. "This is a neural scanner. It can measure synchronization between minds, verify connections exist at the biological level. Use it, examine us. Do whatever you need to be certain." The skeptics couldn't refuse such an offer. Over the next 3 hours, teams of scientists and telepaths from different species examined Taimin and Ashira. They scanned them, tested them, tried to find evidence of deception or manipulation. They found none. The bond was real, verifiable, impossible to fake. Two completely different beings had merged their consciousness into something new, something that allowed perfect cooperation without losing individual identity. One of the telepathic observers, a being made of crystalline structures and light, spoke in tones like wind chimes. I have touched many minds in my long existence. Never have I felt anything like this bond. It is not domination. It is not submission. It is true partnership, two choosing to be one while remaining two. But can it be replicated? Someone asked. Or is this a unique case? Hana stepped forward. We've successfully bonded 43 human Velaran pairs in the past 6 months. Each different, each unique, but all functional. The success rate is approximately 30% among volunteers, which means we can create hundreds, potentially thousands of bonded pairs. To what end? A skeptic challenged. What does this bond actually accomplish? Ashira and Taemin exchanged a glance, then spoke in perfect unison, their voices overlapping. Allow us to demonstrate. They moved to an open space in the center of the hall. Around them, holographic displays activated, showing complex tactical scenarios. Enemy ships, defensive positions, multiple fronts requiring coordination. This is a simulation of a Vorath attack pattern based on what we've learned from the fallen colonies, Taemin explained, his voice now separate again. Watch what happens with conventional command structures. The simulation ran. Ships tried to coordinate, but communication delays and cultural differences caused confusion. Units arrived at wrong positions. Friendly fire incidents occurred. The defense crumbled within minutes. Now watch what happens with bonded commanders, Ashira said. The simulation reset. This time the defending forces were led by bonded pairs, humans and Velarans working in perfect synchronization. Orders.